You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop. It's homeschooling in the car time. We're all in the car so much, so we thought, let's talk about the core curriculum that we bring into the car, specifically for teaching in the car and homeschooling in the car. And then let's talk about some fun things you can do in the car. Okay. But first, let's talk about our scoop on the Coop.
We're together.
Woo!
We're on a business play date today. We're up in the mountains at a campground that we are bringing our Coop group to for Halloween. And we're scoping out the sites, planning what we're going to do for our Halloween celebration events, and just enjoying our time together.
Yeah, it's so fun, and it's beautiful up here.
Yes,
and yes, I did break a sweat walking from campsite to campsite, but I'm just out of shape.
And it's 95 degrees.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
We are in Southern California, if you didn't know, and so even up in the mountains, it's still a 95-degree day here in mid-October.
Crazy.
So, yes, very crazy, very beautiful. I almost wish we were actually camping right now.
I know. Seriously.
I'm kind of sad we're in the mountains and just here for a couple hours.
And it's like empty. There's
beautiful.
Nobody here.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started with homeschooling in the car.
Yeah.
So let's start off with your main curriculum that you bring in the car. Jessie?
Yep. So I have one part of my curriculum that I only do in the car, and that's our history. We use Story of the World, and right now, while my daughter just entered 3rd grade, we've been using the audiobooks for the last few years. So we've gone through Volume 1, Volume 2, and now we're into Volume 3 of Story of the World. So we're just about to get to the American Revolution.
Oh, perfect.
And we drive so much that we get some really good quality chunks of our curriculum done. Twice a week, I do a 30-minute drive.
Each way.
Yeah. So that's almost 2 hours a week of listening to our curriculum, if that's what we do both times. So even if we just turn it on once or twice that week, we're getting an hour of our curriculum every week.
Yeah, that's a ton of history in one little sitting, or 2 little sittings.
And then I have my captive audience in the car, so when we find an opportune time to stop it, we can discuss.
And that's what I love about Story of the World, too, because it's so interesting.
Yes.
And I have learned so much just listening to it.
I love it.
Yeah. And so, and like you said, it does provoke good discussion about, from cultures to religions to legends to just knowing the context of the time and why people made the decisions that they made. And so it's a great way to do history, because history is just basically storytelling.
Yes, and I love it.
Yeah. So something that I do in the car is language.
Oh, yeah.
So we tried Chinese, Mandarin, and we all could sing Happy Birthday to You, and Old MacDonald Had a Farm.
So cute.
And we had little booklets that I would pass back to them, and they would try and read along and stuff when during the song. But Mandarin got really hard. Right. So we did have some Latin DVDs come with our CDs, I should say, that came with our workbooks. So that we have one in the car and we have one in the house.
Oh,
so
perfect.
we can practice at home when they learn the lesson, and then we can practice in the car.
That's perfect.
So it's a really great way to do language.
Absolutely. And then speaking of songs, when my daughter was in a music program that required us to listen to music or listen to the songs to help train the ear and to get familiar with the curriculum, we would do that in the car. So that was intentionally turned on as part of her practice for the week.
Yeah, that's great. And then just kind of going along with that, I'm doing Make a Joyful Noise unto the Lord as our motto this year. And so music genres. Mm-hmm. So right now we're doing musicals.
Yes.
So we are watching musicals and talking about the progression and the evolution of musicals and musical theater. But I can also download the songs and listen to them in the car.
Perfect.
So I feel like that's a great way to really teach them the songs and get practice singing the songs together.
Right.
Without having to see the movie to do it.
Right. Oh, and I know that your little can belt her heart out to Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, yes, she can.
Since she was 3 years old.
Oh, yeah. She can do that high note, that Christine Diaz high note at the end of the song.
I love it. Yeah. And then the current popular request in your car?
Hamilton, of course.
Yeah, same. So my daughter and I were driving yesterday, and since it was a Saturday, we opted not to turn on our Story of the World, and instead she and I were belting out our Hamilton tunes.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
And that creates such a homey environment in your car.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, when I'm by myself, I turn on my musical station and belt it out by myself.
Yeah, totally. I'd love to drive next to you and look through your window and see you doing that.
It's really awesome. Yeah.
So another thing that we do in the car is catechism. So whether it's using the booklet, because I have the booklet, and then sometimes I have them bring it into the car, and then they ask each other. Or they ask me and see if I know it. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. And then we also have a CD that plays a song. We do, it's called Teach Them the Faith.
Okay.
CD, and it's one long song of about 150 catechisms.
Oh, yeah, no big deal.
But it's really good.
Right.
And the adult always asks and the children always answer in this melodious song. But there's other ones that do that too. It's just this is the one that was given to us, and we loved it. And then... there was something. Oh, so when they were preschoolers, I started doing read alouds in the car.
Yes.
So I hadn't found the joy of the read aloud yet, other than a picture book at night when they go to bed. I never really thought about doing it during the day, actually, because we were so busy going to Disneyland and SeaWorld and things like that. So, but after I went to a homeschool convention and met Jim Wise from Great Hall Productions and his table, I was enraptured by him. My sister-in-law loved him.
Yes.
And she says, we listened to all his stories. We listened to Story of the World. And that's when I snapped up all that stuff.
Yep.
So he does a lot of fairy tales, and he does Good Luck Duck, which is a 45-minute story about a boy who wins a duck at a fair and doesn't know what to do with it. And he won't stop quacking. So that was kind of my way of, they would listen to it at night when they go to bed at night, but I'd also bring it into the car because that was my way of them learning to listen to other people read them books and learning to focus on a read aloud. And what was so great is it was his voice. So when we transitioned to Story of the World, where it was more meat, more content, and also lesser known context, they were able to transition very well because they already loved the read aloud narrator. And now what we do is we don't just do Story of the World and some of the little story CDs. That if we're doing a read aloud book, like when we did the Narnia series or Little House on the Prairie, we would do read aloud on Audible.
Right.
While I was making dinner or whatever, and we've talked about this before in previous episodes. And then when it was time to leave, we could bring the story with us into the car, and we could get way more reading done.
Absolutely.
Because I could just play it in the car.
Absolutely.
So the audiobooks.
Yep. We love those.
Yep.
Any other core curriculum you do in the car?
So sometimes if we were driving to Disneyland, then that was our school day, was the car.
Okay.
So besides like maybe some neat things you can learn at Disneyland, like engineering, waiting in line and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Architecture. But in the car, then they would bring their math activity book and I would just show it to them ahead of time. They might bring other activity books that they have, like especially when they were younger and they're just learning to write. So they could trace, or they could do a maze and do those sorts of things until they got car sick. Yeah. So that would probably be the only other core curriculum that I would bring in the car. How about you? Anything
else? Same. When I knew that we were going somewhere and I thought we might be gone all day, I would have us just pack it. And if we had a chance to get to it, we would, or we would just do Story of the World, and that would be fine for me. You know, so sometimes depending on what our day would look like, I would have it packed and then just either rotate it in or just forego it altogether.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. All right, so let's move to the fun things you can do in the car, other than all of that.
Right. Well, there's so many opportunities to do enriching things in your car, in addition to the songs and listening to music or just having them do their own thing. You can provide educationally enriching activities in the car as well.
And make wonderful memories all along the way. Yeah. So let's talk about, I'm just going to speak for you and say it's both of our favorite thing.
Sure.
Because we've done it together. It's called the Bag of Fun.
Yes.
So I've done it a ton. I've done it on road trips to San Francisco. I've done it on road trips with other families to Big Sur. I've done it on just going to my parents' house, and we did it for the donut road trip.
Yes.
And it's called the Bag of Fun, and I actually figured this out when I was a junior high teacher.
Oh, awesome.
We went to Washington, D.C., brought the junior high kids. I had junior high kids in a bus assigned to me for 2.5, 3 weeks. And so I had a bag of prizes and activities for the kids to do based upon the learning they had just done at the last museum or battlefield or whatever.
How cool.
And it filled up the drive,
Right.
just created memories on the bus. And we had a microphone we'd go around, and it was really great. So I've now evolved that to work from my own van.
Right.
And so I sewed a bag and put Velcro in it and put about 20 popsicle sticks. And each popsicle stick, on it, I wrote an activity.
Yes.
And it could be thankfuls, things they're thankful for. It could be one thing I like about each person in the car.
Right.
It could be math wrap-ups. It could be a picture book that I've brought for them to look at. It could be read your chapter book you brought.
Right.
It could be anything you want them to do. It could be as academic as you want it to be, or it could be a Bible verse you're learning that is the theme of your road trip.
Right.
It could be so many different things, and we're going to have a blog about that.
Yeah. Well, for our donut road trip, we had one of them be our specific donut theme song that we had picked out. So every time someone would pick that one out of the Bag of Fun, we would have to put on that donut song.
1,000 tiny donuts.
And we'd all be just singing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really so fun. We had one for, the book, Give a Dog a Donut,
Yes.
All different activities. And so if you have a passenger adult or an older child as a passenger, then they can help run some of those activities. I've done it completely by myself. And so I stuck in some things in there that was play a DVD or watch a movie on your Kindle.
Right.
And then I knew now I'm going to have an hour and a half to myself.
Right.
And for the shorter car rides, you could put in maybe 6 things you want to make sure you get done.
Yeah.
And when your child reaches in and pulls it out, they're so excited to see what they get.
Right.
It could be build a story 1 word at a time. It could be build a story 1 sentence at a time. And everybody gets a chance to start it. So each activity can take anywhere from 1 minute to 5 to 10 minutes based upon, do you guys want to keep going on this activity?
Right.
Or do you want to stop and do another one? And so we even had a hymn we would memorize for the long.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so it depends how long the drive is and how many different activities you want in there. But it is fun to do when you have another family in the car, especially because you get to hear a variety of ideas and you get to hear from someone who might not normally tell you what they like about you. They're now going to tell you what they like about you.
Yeah.
And it really builds up the bonding in the car.
And it allowed the opportunity to put actual new teachable moments, not just enriching activities or sweet moments, but if it was important to what you were doing, you could put in a teachable moment.
Right.
And everyone was in the car. They were excited because that's what came out of the Bag of Fun.
Yeah.
We were going to do it. There's no complaining.
Exactly.
You just do it.
And those teachable moments could be even questions, like a question of the day type of thing that could provoke deep discussion.
Absolutely.
And
especially as these kids continue to get older.
Right.
We can expect a little bit more when it comes to conversation and thought-provoking conversations.
Right. And if you have a joke book or you have a would you rather book, you could even say each person reads from one of those books and we all guess the joke or answer the would you rather. So it's just a really fun way. And then on a really long road trip, I usually put in a popsicle stick that says prize.
Oh, nice.
And I've pre-wrapped the prize and I have it for each leg of the trip.
Right.
So then they're really excited, especially excited to do the Bag of Fun because they might get the prize.
Right.
So, and usually it's a prize I found on the way back. It's a prize I found at the museum we went to or the gift shop. Yeah. And I brought little goodie bags to already wrap them and put them in.
Knowing you were going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cute.
Okay. So let's talk about the car basket or car bin.
Yes.
So some of these items that you would have for the Bag of Fun could be in a car basket or bin.
Yep.
And basically the way I used it was the bin held basically the toys and the games and the activity books they like to do in the car. So it could be anywhere from spinners, a travel size Bop It.
Right.
My kids loved doing apples to apples and they figured out their own rendition where only 2 people needed to play.
All right.
Yeah, it was really funny the way they did it, and but they figured it out. And here they're reading, they're learning words, they're asking me, what does this word mean?
Right.
And it was just a really great educational enrichment.
Right.
That felt like just a delight for them. You could also do like put friendship bracelets in there. That's something they can do in the car. But I like keeping clipboards in the car basket.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So then if they need something hard to write on, they could. Yeah. And you could sew little books for them just to draw in or whatever, and keep colored pencils in it. You never put crayons in the car.
Never.
Because crayons will melt and ruin your cup holders. But the colored pencils will be a really great. Yeah. So anything about the car basket for you?
No, I mean, I don't have an actual bin.
Yeah.
But we do have the Pop It in the car, and then we do normally have some kind of coloring book or something for my little guy floating around or just even a book for him to read himself.
Yeah.
Because my daughter will even bring her headphones in for some of our shorter drives so she can continue her own personal read aloud.
Right.
And then he wants a book because he knows she's listening to a book. He's figured that out, so then he wants a book. So we do that, and then he has his own personal bag that comes with him.
Oh, right. His cars. That's so cute.
He has his own, he calls it his backpack. Or maybe now it's his pack. I think we're at that phase. And it's his pack. So he will pack it intentionally for the car ride. So I don't have something that stays in my car that I organize for each trip unless it's a road trip. So, very similar to you on a road trip, even though I didn't implement a bag of fun in which they would pull out their prizes, I would have a certain part of the road trip that we would pull that out. So we'll probably do a road tripping blog post another time. Because I know between us we have some great ideas, but for big trips, I had special snacks that would get pulled out at good moments and that kind of thing to enrich the time in the car and make it a memorable car experience.
Yeah, I love that. Just the intentionality of
exactly.
it. And these are all like activities that people naturally do, but we're packaging it in a way that feels a little extra special.
Right.
Like who's ready for their special snack? And then it's like, versus I'm hungry, here you go.
Right.
So packaging, it's the way you package it, and my kids love road trips now. I wanted to condition them to love road trips, and they always want to go on them.
Yep. I need to train my little guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's just right at the beginning. Yeah. All right. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but just the discussions you can have in the car.
Absolutely.
You can do some of your daily things that you do, whether it's memorizing your Bible verse or singing praises or saying your thankfuls or talking about, like we have a thing that we do, it's called Rainbows and Puddles.
Oh, cute. And
rainbows are things that made you happy in the day, and puddles are things that made you sad. And so we normally do that when they go to bed at night, but sometimes if I want to have a little deeper discussion, I will do rainbows and puddles at any other time.
Right.
And in the car's a great time because they're actually really willing to listen and learn. And we talk about things such as what you look for in a future spouse,
right?
Buying a home we've talked about, because every time we go by our old neighborhood, we talk about it. Anything can come up.
Yeah, we were navigating conflict resolution and how to avoid conflict and what to do, how you ask help navigating a conflict. Those are discussions that I had in the car yesterday.
Yeah. And what I think is so great about that too, it's not like you're sitting them down to have a discussion.
Yeah.
But I think my kids learned about the birds and the bees basically this way. Either that or at our local farm when there was a pregnant goat or when I was pregnant, but those types of things just naturally come up because they're quiet in their thoughts and they're thinking. They're not distracted by TV and their toys. They're literally just looking out the window thinking.
Right.
And so it's a good idea to sometimes just provide space for that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like I always have to have something on or going. Right. But if we just kind of just let it be peaceful every once in a while, those discussions can really happen.
Yeah. And then we did touch on the audio as part of our curriculum, but of course, utilize the audio. I mean, just have a fun playlist. It doesn't have to be specific to a curriculum or a music program or anything, but if you make music playlists that you want your kids to be exposed to, if you want to introduce them to the Led Zeppelins of the world or Blondie or whoever it is,
OMD,
right, just go for it. And then there's the read alouds, even if that's not something that you have assigned or as part of your core curriculum. If you need something enriching for the car, figure out how to run an audiobook or an Audible download from your phone into your car, because that can be its own magical moment, and there's so much enriching opportunity there.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about different books that we're doing in the car
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And yeah, I was just playing the Smiths for the kids the other day, and I'm like, let me. I was like
Right,
singing
right.
along with it, and then when the song was over, one of them was like, oh, I like that song. I was like, okay, we'll listen to it again.
Right. Yeah. My daughter's been really into the a cappella group. I can't think of their name, and it doesn't matter right now, but she's been into them in particular.
Cool.
And then they have covered Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
so now
yeah.
she's obsessed with that.
That's
and then
so
they
fun.
do a cover of Jolene with Dolly Parton.
Oh, I love Jolene.
Yes. And now I said a word to my son that he thought sounded like Jolene. And he starts going, Jolene,
Jolene.
I was dying. It was
awesome.
so funny, but that's because he got to do that, and I knew that song was playing, and it's not necessarily a song I highly recommend you introduce to your children, but it came on as part of her exploration into this a cappella group, and then he likes that one. So.
Yeah, and who knows the rabbit holes you can go down, right?
Absolutely.
Another fun thing to do with your kids is if you know you have an event coming up, or an activity or something that you need to plan for ahead of time, then you ask them to grab their their clipboards out of their car basket.
Yep.
And let's plan it right now while we're driving.
Oh, perfect.
And it teaches them the skill of event planning. Like,
Absolutely.
what kind of things do we need to think about or bring? And they're actually helping you do something you needed to do anyway.
Yeah, I love that.
And then you can also set up your timeline. Like, well, if people are coming over at 6, let's work backwards. What needs to be done at 5:45, and then 5:30, and then 5:15. And my mom taught me that. And you work backwards all the way until the final task that you need to do, which is the first task.
Right.
All the way back to 3 o'clock or whatever.
Right.
So, so you can even teach them that, how to schedule getting time management, basically,
Yeah, I love
stuff
that.
done. So that's kind of a fun thing I've done a couple times with planning, like their birthday party or something.
Yeah, that's super cool.
One other thing I was thinking of, and we were just talking about how you can get so much wonderful conversation handled with their grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
On the phone.
Right.
So you can put it on speaker, pass it back to them, as long as it's not a 2-year-old.
Right.
But pass back the phone to them, and they can talk with their grandparents or aunts and uncles or cousins or whoever it is.
Right.
And that's not cutting into your school day. It's not cutting into things you need to get done when you get home.
Right.
And you could even schedule it with them ahead of time, saying, we're going to be in the car. My daughter really would love to talk with you. Sometimes my kids do a lot of Marco Poloing in the car, just like I do.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of gets some of that relationship building handled while you're busy listening maybe to, well, I guess if it's...
Well, yeah, if it's grandparents, I'm listening to their conversation.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah. So I was about to say you could listen to your own podcast. But
Yeah, maybe you're listening to us while your kids are talking to somebody else.
Anyway, so I guess that's what those are the things that we do for homeschooling in the car.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our joys.
Okay.
Let's do one together because we bring each other joy.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
We're out together alone, and it's daytime.
Oh my word! How does that happen?
So much joy.
Yeah. So thankful for our hubbies.
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, it's always a blast with you, girl.
I know, having so much fun. So that's our joy, is we're together. And we're out and about enjoying the beautiful nature, a drive alone together.
Yeah, it's fun. And we got things figured out for the camping trip. So
That's right. It was productive and bonding.
yeah, it makes me even more excited because we got a lot of the unknowns taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, that's it. That is homeschooling in the car.